With the release of Rails 4 and Ruby 2.0, I figured I should update these instructions on installing Rails on Windows with MySQL. This screencast assumes that you've got the MySQL server installed. If you don't, I've got some instructions on how to do that. I'll link to that in the description. This also assumes that you've got the MySQL client, command line client on your path. If you don't understand what that means, take a look at that MySQL server install. Adding the command line client to your path is covered in that screencast. So the first thing we want to do is go to rubyinstaller.org and click download. And from here we want to click on the first link here. This is the Ruby 2.0 32-bit version, so we'll get that downloaded. And we also want something called DevKit, and here we want the second link here in this development kit section where it says the 64-32. We want to make sure we get that one downloaded. And next we want to go to the MySQL developer zone at dev.mysql.com. We want to click downloads, and from there you'll see on the left here the connectors link. Here we want to scroll down until you find the connector/c the libmysql client. Click that. I actually had some trouble with this most current version of the connector, so I tried a previous version of the connector and it compiled fine. So let's download the previous version and download this the second this one here, the x86 32-bit zip archive. This one here. Click download, and we can skip the login or sign up. Just click no thanks to start the download. And you'll see that this is automatically opened up a window for me here, but we'll close that. We'll deal with that later. Next, we're going to go to download a program called Git, which is a distributed version control system. We're going to use that to get the MySQL source when we run the bundle command when we're installing Rails. So we'll get to that though. Here on the right hand side, if you scroll down, you'll see the download for Windows. Click that, and it should open up a page here automatically downloading Git, and it's doing it. So let's open up, while it's doing that, let's open up the downloads folder where I've got everything downloading. We'll get the Ruby installer started. So double click that and click run. English is okay, and we'll accept the license. And that location is fine. And we want to select the second option here, add Ruby executables to your path. If you're not familiar with what that means, it just means that when we're running the command line that Ruby is going to be available and other executables will be available no matter where we are in the command line. And here we'll click install and finish. Next you'll see here's the devkit exe. This is a self-extracting file, but we'll double click that and get it started. And here we're going to have it extract to c:\devkit and click extract. And while that's going, let's double click on Git and get that started. And we'll click next, next. We can accept the defaults here, fine. Again, next, and next. And here we actually want to select the second one here, run Git from Windows command prompt. That's what we're going to need for this installation. Click next. The default here to use OpenSSH is great. Click next. And we'll accept the default here as well. And we'll let that expand, or this will finish here real quick. And we won't bother with the release notes. Okay, so we've got Git installed, we've got the devkit extracted, the Ruby installer has run, got Ruby installed. Next we want to double click on this connector, this zip file. When we double click on it, this opens up the zip, or we can traverse the zip. It hasn't extracted the file, but we're in there looking at it. We want to select this directory, right click on it and click copy. And then at the root of C, let's paste in that directory. And this will take a few moments here. So that you'll notice when you double click on it, just to make sure double check that you've got C:/ MySQL connector, blah, blah, blah. When you're viewing this directory, the most important thing is that you've got these folders in here. Okay? So we may as well go back to downloads for now. So we've got Git installed, we've got the connector extracted to C, we've also got the dev kit extracted, and we've got Ruby installed. Next, we want to bring up the command prompt. And if you don't know what that is, you can find it under Start, All Programs, and scroll down here to Accessories and Command Prompt. I've got it pinned to my taskbar, so if you want it to do that, that is pretty convenient. You just right-click on it. And in my case, I've got Unpinned from taskbar. You probably will have Pinned to taskbar. So select that, and once you've done that, then you've got the command prompt down here. So just launch it like that, click on it, and here we've got now the command prompt or the command line. Let's first test out that Ruby's installed properly. We'll just type ruby-v, and you'll see that it's come back with Ruby 2.0, P247. That looks good. Next, we need to install the dev kit, and we'll cd into that directory where we extracted dev kit. So it's cd /dev kit. And from here, we're going to run ruby dk.rb init. And you can see that it's found the Ruby installer v2.0. That sounds good, and that's the correct location. Next, we'll type in ruby dk.rb install. And you can see that it's done its thing there. Back at the rubyinstaller.org, you'll notice that there's a link here for building your own native extensions, and it's a link to the wiki for DevKit, which is hosted at GitHub here. If you scroll down, they've got the installation instructions which we just went through, but they've got this a little thing here to test the installation. So just copy this line here, which basically is installing this JSON Ruby or this JSON gem, and go back to your command prompt and paste in that command. And what we're going to do is we're going to add in a --no-ri like this, and then a --no-rdoc. And what that's going to do is it's going to speed up the install. It's basically skipping the documentation, which we're not going to need. So just after you type that in, hit enter. And here you can see that it's using DevKit, and that it's saying that it installed JSON. That's great. Let's go back to the wiki, and here they've got a command here that tests out whether or not that gem is working. I mean, the install went well, but does the gem work, right? So paste this command in. What it's doing here is it's loading an array as JSON, and if we hit enter here, it'll output a Ruby array. So that looks like it's working fine. The next thing we want to do is there's one step that we have to do with the MySQL connector before we do the compilation. And it doesn't have to be done before that, but it's something that has to be done as part of the process here. So bring back up your folder here and go to C and then the MySQL connector and go to the lib directory. And you'll see this libmysql.dll. Just select that, right-click and copy it, and go back to C, and we have to find the Ruby 2.0 directory here, the Ruby 2.0, and go to the bin directory and paste in that DLL. Okay, so that's what has to be done there. And if we go back to the command line now, we will run gem install rails-v equals 4.0.0 here, or 4.0.0. If we didn't specify the version as of today, when I'm recording this, that would be the correct version. It would just assume that, but I'm specifying the version here correctly or specifically so that when this becomes a little bit dated, these instructions should still work, given that you use the same versions of everything. So we've got gem install Rails with the version specified, We also want to specify again no RI and no RDoc. That's 2 dashes, no dash RI, and 2 dashes again, no dash RDoc. And hit enter. Now this will take a few minutes. It's going out and downloading the required gems for Rails, Rails and its dependencies. And in here you'll probably see right there it says building native extensions. That's making use of DevKit. And we'll have a few more here to install. And there we go. Rails is installed. Now we're going to create a directory. We'll just do it through the command line. We'll do make dir and c:\/ and let's call it dev. And we'll cd into that dev directory like that, cd space /dev. Now here what we're going to do is we're going to run the Rails command to create a new Rails project or application. We'll do Rails new, and we'll call it hello world. And we'll specify a -d here, an option to say that we want to use MySQL, which will create MySQL as the default database to be used with the application. And we want to make sure we specify a -B here. And what that will, the normal, if you don't specify the -B, it'll create the directory structure and configure it to use MySQL, and then it will run bundle install, which will install all the required gems for a Rails application. And we want to make sure that we don't do that, because it'll specify that, okay, it's going to use the MySQL2 gem, but in this case what we need to do is specify specifically where we're getting that source from, and we're going to refer to the connector code that we downloaded. So we don't want to run bundle install yet. So we're going to add this -B, and once you've done that, hit enter. And you can see that it's went ahead and created the directory structure. Now I've got an editor here called Notepad++, and you can open up whatever editor you're using. If you're not familiar with what a code editor is, it's a way for you. Basically, I mean, you just need a most basic text editor, and Notepad++ is one of those. I decided to use this just because it's freely available. Other editors are like Sublime Text 2. And you get the idea. It's a way to look at your code and work with your code. So in this case, let's add that Rails application directory to this workspace here. Now, if you're not looking at this particular, if you don't have this view, go to View and go to Project, and then select Project Panel 1, and you should see something like this. Right-click on Workspace, and we'll say Add New Project. I'm going to call it just Hello World. And when you right-click on Hello World, you can say Add Files from Directory. So let's select that. Go to C and open up Dev and select Hello World. Click OK. And you'll notice here now we've got all these directories, all these files. I'm just going to minimize the directories here so that we can see them and work with them. The first thing you want to do is look at this thing called the gem file. So double click on that to open it. And you'll see here this reference right near the top that we want excuse me, that we want to use the MySQL2 gem, right? But now what we need to do is specify specifically that we want to get this from GitHub. And GitHub is a service that provides access to Git repositories. And so in this case, we've got we'll just enter in the details here. We can there's a shorthand here for the gem file called GitHub : and within single quotes here we'll put in Brian Mario / MySQL2 and end with the single quote. And here we want to specify this tag of the version 0.3.11. And make sure you save that. I did a Control S I'm sure you can just do a file and save to save it. Now from here we'll go back to the command line, and we need to create a way to have bundler refer to a particular option that we have to set, so that when we compile the gem that it's using the code that we've downloaded, the connector code. And the way we do that is we enter in bundle and we say config, and we're going to specify, this time we're going to specify local. We're going to -- local, and now you can, if you don't specify local, it'll set it at system wide, but just for this installation I want to specify -- local, and I'll show you what it does. And we want to call it build.mysql2, and the option we want to specify is -- with opt_dir equals C:\\. And now if you type in my and you hit tab, it should do it what's called a tab completion and fill in the rest of that directory for you, so you don't have to type the whole thing out, and then finish it with a single quote. Now when you hit enter, it'll say gem file not found. Let's see here, what did I do here? GitHub, bundle config, opter. Oh, here we have to, we have to go into the hello world directory, and then now with the command line, if you hit the up arrow, you see how you get the previous command, and hit it again and you'll get the bundle config command again. Let's see if that works. Now you see that it didn't come back with any message, so I'm going to assume that it worked. If you take a look at your project here now, let's just see if I can refresh this. Dot config. Basically, it should have opened up a subdirectory in your Hello World project, but I'll just take a look. We'll just go back to the command line here, and if you can cd into .bundle, I mean the directory structure is there. It's just not being updated in the workspace. And if you do a dir, which will show the listing, you'll see that there's this config file, and we can do more config. And it'll show you that here's the command that we entered, and it's in this file. So that if we go back up to this cdev hello world, now that option is there, when we run bundle install, and it goes to install all the required gems specified, go back here, you can see all these gems that are specified that are required for the Rails application. When we go back here and we run bundle install, when it comes across the MySQL2 gem, it'll know to look in this config file and pick up that option, this with opt_dir, and that's exactly where our directory for the client code is, and it will use that to compile this gem. So let's do bundle install and hit enter. And you can see that it went and got the code from GitHub for the MySQL2 gem. It installed it, and now it's using previously installed gems as well as installing new ones. And here it's doing the installation for the MySQL2. It grabbed the source earlier, and then it just did compiled it there. And now we've got the Rails app installed. So next we want to make sure that we want to test this out. So let's run the MySQL command and check that we've got we want to create the database for this application. So we'll do MySQL --user equals root and then a -p. It'll ask us for the root password. In my case, it's password 1. And here we'll do a show databases. And you can see that it's got the database listing there. Here we want to do a create database hello_world_development. And if we do show databases again, you'll see that it's there. We hit exit. And now we can do Rails. We'll do a generate. We'll do scaffold, user, with the first name, string, last name, string, and let's say email, string. Okay, so with the scaffolding generated, now let's go back to our Notepad or our editor, and we need to modify the database YML file, and find the section here for development, and in password here, my root password is password1, so make sure that you've got your correct password in there. And we'll go back to the command prompt. And here we'll type in rake db migrate, which will now run the migration. And if we can connect properly to MySQL, this will work. And you can see that the create table did work. So that actually is a good test of the gem installation for MySQL. But let's further test this just for the heck of it. We'll do Rails S, which will launch the Rails web server, the development web server. And it looks like it's running, so now let's go back to our browser and we'll put in HTTP localhost. And here you can see welcome aboard. The Rails app is responding. You can click that and you can see what we've got installed. And here we'll just add in /users. It'll take a while there, and we'll go new user, and say John McDonald, my email. And it looks like it created. We can go back, and sure enough the listing is there. If you wanted to test out, well, we can shut down the server with a Control-C and go yes. We can go do MySQL user equals root -p password1. And if you're not familiar with MySQL, here are a few commands. You can do show databases, right? We did that earlier. And in order to take a look at that users table, we can do use hello world development, and so now we're using that database. Now when you do show tables, you'll see the schema migrations, which is where Rails keeps track of the database migrations, and there's the users. So we can go to like describe users. There's the users table, and if we do a select star from users, there's the data that we just entered. So everything looks like it installed properly. It's a little, like I say, a little bit of a tricky install. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask. And yeah, hope you found it useful.